The city of Glendale had the good vision to acquire the property in 1988, and in 1989, the Deukmejian Wilderness Park was opened. Yay! There's a number of park amenities. There are park programs such as educational hikes, lectures, campfire programs, etc. I want to just touch real briefly a little bit on the station fire, which we were all impacted by. Approximately 690 acres of the 709-acre park were burned by this action. Over 160,000 acres in LA County between August the 26th and October 16th, 2009 burned. It was the largest fire in LA County history. On September the 1st, 2009, a decision was made to start a backfire here at the Wilderness Park. And what that did was that had a very prescribed burn so that the vegetation would stop the wildfire and it would prevent it from going south down into the residential homes. And that was very effective and very smart that that was done. The park itself, as you can see, was not impacted, and there was also a very large oak tree, which later in the program we're going to actually dedicate to Assistant City Manager Bob McFall, who was very instrumental in having that oak tree maintained. The 9 months since the fire, park staff has seen the return of wildlife. We see a resprouting of the native vegetation, and we expect a full recovery within 5 years. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce to you our Mayor Pro Tem, Laura Friedman.
I want to thank all of you for coming today. I don't think that any of us are ever going to forget the terror of the station fire and seeing those walls of flames coming down the hills and spreading out through the entire Angeles forest. It was truly horrifying. But today, I think that horror is supplemented by a new image. And that was an image that I saw, and you probably saw, pulling up the road, which was one of those barriers that had a big piece of paper over it that said, "Open." And that's an image that I won't forget, and a wonderful and joyous moment. Absolutely. And there's a few stories I want to just tell you today that I've been thinking about. The first one is a story about a community and its love for a park. This park has always been so dear to this area, to all of the citizens of this area. When the station fire was happening, we were very worried about the park, but we were more worried that some of you would come up here with garden hoses because you love this park so much that you would do anything to defend it. And believe me, as the fire moved further down towards Deukmejian, and when the call came out that they were going to be setting the backfire, what everyone was asking was, what's going to happen to the barn? There was so much concern amongst the city, and we were so pleased when the barn was saved and when the backfire worked and it stopped the fire from moving down into the neighborhoods. We know that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to all of the firefighters who fought that fire, and particularly the Glendale Fire Department, who acted so heroically and so quickly and decisively in stopping the fire. Yes. The second story that I want to talk about is about redemption and rebirth. And this fire is a great example of that. And you can see already this incredible regrowth, and the plants will come back and nature will come back. I was doing some research on fires and was shocked to find out that out of the hundreds of fires that we have every year in California, and there are hundreds of them, that less than 1% are related to natural causes. The rest are man-made, whether it's somebody smoking or playing with matches, whether it's power equipment being used on a hillside incorrectly, whether it's a car fire that sets another fire, or arson. We have done this. It's not a natural cycle, these giant fires. Some of it's also related to invasive species and improper planning. And I hope that we can use this tragedy as a teaching moment to get back into balance with nature, to be the stewards of the land that we need to be. So with that thought, thank you all so much for coming. This park is for you, and this day is for you, and I'm just so happy to have been a part of it today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take a minute just to recognize we have some certificates from elected officials. We have a certificate from Congressman Adam Schiff's office, and we also have a certificate from Senator Carol Liu's office as well for the grand reopening. What I'd like to do now is introduce to you George Chapchian. He's the Director of Community Services and Parks.
Thank you, Commissioner Khan. I'm just going to recognize the hard work of the volunteers in this community, and just to let you know how much time people did give to helping to preserve this park, save this park. Community volunteers, the CV Historic Society, and other volunteers put 300 members, totaling 1,800 hours of sandbagging, removal of exotic plants, and trail repair. The public works staff, and Steve Zern was here, and we want to thank Steve Zern and the public works staff, over 4,000 hours after fire preparation for winter storms, placing K-rails, sandbags in city streets and parks, cleanup of mud and debris, and restore park, roads, and trails. And they're making us pancake breakfast this morning, so thank you guys. With Bob McFall retiring, we're going to have to teach him how to make some waffles, I think, at this point. Community services and park staff, 1,750 hours to prepare for winter storms, constructing walls, berms, placing sandbags, and after the rains, the cleanup of debris flow and repair storm-related damages. Thanks to all who helped. Thank you very much.
Morning, folks. One of the projects that we're working on up here, and actually it's going to the City Council this Tuesday night, is the seismic retrofit of this historic barn. You see the steel beam that's wrapped around it. That'll go away, and we'll be constructing a seismic retrofit that uses a concrete buttress system that will blend in. You won't really even know it's there. So that'll be the first phase. We don't currently have funding for the other phases, but we're applying for funding. We're fortunate to have a really talented grant writer and Mr. Mark Sturdivant up there, and we're hopeful to acquire more grant funds and turn this barn into an interpretive center where we can have programming on an everyday basis, everything from native plants to wildlife to nature education. So anyways, I'll stop there and invite you all to have a great day today, and look forward to seeing more of you up here at the Duke. Thank you.
Do stop by the booths. We've got 3 different booths covering 3 different periods of history. First off, we've got Cat High from Haramakna American Indian Cultural Center, which is located right up here at Angela's Crest. She's here with a booth today to tell you about American Indians and their contribution to our history. We've also got our own booth of photos from the 20s and 30s from La Crescenta. And then we've got another booth up there. The purple booth up there has photos that were taken right after the fire of the area up here, and some of the historical finds that were uncovered by the fire, stuff that had been covered up by brush for decades that we never knew about. So take a look up here and watch for these great presentations we have today.
If you don't know about it already, there's an amazing art display that's opening tonight downtown across from the Americana called Art from the Ashes. Art from the Ashes is an amazing exhibit where artists have taken the ashes from Deukmejian and some of the found materials that were burned in the fire and made unbelievable art and jewelry out of it. I went last night to the opening, and it's so cathartic and so healing to see that out of such destruction, people are making something so beautiful. The Art from the Ashes is a fundraiser. All the art in the exhibit is for sale, although I can tell you it's going really fast. And that is going to go, the artists get none of it. They donated their works so that we can raise money for the restoration of this park. So it's such an incredible, generous act on their behalf. Dottie Sharkey, who has started a foundation called the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation to raise money for this park and in the future for other parks, something that's going to be such a huge benefit to the city of Glendale and the people of Glendale. And Dottie has put in countless hours staging this show, working on the building, getting it all together, starting this new nonprofit, and we are so, so lucky to have her in this community. I'd like to ask her to come up and say a few words. Dottie?
Parks do make life better. I've been hiking at this park for 20 years, and a year ago, we're only a year old, Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. We are a non-profit, and our very first fundraiser, when the station fire happened, our very first fundraiser, I was just so excited to do something for this park. We were up here after the fire when it was a moonscape, going through the raw materials, the debris. You will be absolutely amazed what the artists have done. And just, it's so cathartic to see something so devastating turn into amazing works of art. We're open every day but Monday. The gallery is open till July 24th, so you have 5 weeks, and we hope to see you there. The gallery in the afternoons when no one's there and you're just walking around looking at the pieces of art. It's absolutely amazing. We're at 216 South Brand, between the Americana and the main library, so I hope to see you there. Please, please visit our gallery. Bye-bye.
Hi folks, I'm John Draymond and I'm the City Council member of the City of Glendale. And thank you. And I'm happy because of a number of things, but I'm happy because this park is reopening. I'm a native La Crescentan, and that means a lot to me. And when there are opportunities to move out of Glendale, this is Glendale. I've chosen not to. I love this community, and my family came here in the 40s, settled here, and we've made great use of our Glendale schools and our Glendale parks. And this is something that is fantastic that our city has done, our community has done together. We are very fortunate. When people ask what makes the Crescenta Valley so special, it is how we respond when there are catastrophes, and certainly the station fire was just that. How this community responded was amazing. How the city responded was equally amazing. And the fact that you all are still invested in this park and this community. I'm stopped constantly throughout the city, and I'm asked by people who live in the Crescenta Valley, what can we do? What can we do to help? How can we volunteer? Can we sandbag? Can we plant trees? What can we do? Well, you're doing it. You're doing it today. You've been doing it right along. I want to thank George Chapchin. I want to thank my colleagues on the City Council who you've heard from. I also want to thank the, in particular, Public Works Department for all the great work they did during and after the fire, and the work they continue to do. I think that's very important as well. Reopening this park is just the beginning. It will blossom and grow and continue to do so, as will this community. You are a wonderful, wonderful group of people, and we love you very much. Thank you for coming out today. Enjoy the park. Thank you so much.
There's two last things we're going to do. First of all, we're going to invite everyone to come up to the base of the trail where we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And then after that, we're going to just take a real short hike up to the dedication of the oak tree to Assistant City Manager Bob McFall. We would now ask you to join us for the ribbon cutting. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for hiking up here. Yeah, we all made it. Let's give ourselves a round of applause.
He's been around for a long, long time. He started actually as sort of a park maintenance type of person, and went through college, went up to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, became a horticulturist, landscape architect, etc. Wound up being the director of the Glendale Parks and Recreation. So he's actually instrumental in most of the green that you see in Glendale. He's the one that did the planning, secured the funding, et cetera, et cetera. So he's had a wonderful, wonderful career with the city of Glendale. He's recognized throughout the state of California as being one of the premier administrators and park directors, et cetera. And so I'm very proud to say a few words, and I can't think of a better setting. And he's as sturdy as this oak. Believe me, he's just a very, very solid guy. So congratulations.
We are proud of Bob and proud of his efforts to save this great oak. And how many of you live in the Crescenta Valley? Just curious. And those of you who don't, how many of you come up here at all? Fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, Bob, this is, it's not everybody that gets an oak tree named for them, and this is spectacular. This area, how many of you remember riding horseback up here when it was, there you go. We used to walk up New York Avenue, if you can imagine that. Just walking up to the oak almost did me in. But we used to walk up New York Avenue and rent horses at the Inner Valley Ranch and ride in the canyons here. It was a lot of fun. And Bob, you are now officially going to be a piece of Crescenta Valley lore, a piece of Crescenta Valley memorabilia. That makes you historic.
Does that make me tax exempt now too?
It does. It does. Mr. Starbird will be up in a moment to discuss your tax.
No, he won't.
It's a beautiful setting. It's fitting that this tree be named in your honor. And Bob has agreed that he will be up every other Thursday to water it. And to trim it, yes. Anyway, thank you all for being here for the grand reopening of a portion of Deukmejian Park. And Bob, thank you for your great service to the city and your kind stewardship of not only our parks in your day, but also our city organization as a whole. We will miss you terribly, but we can come visit your oak.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to introduce Bob's boss, at least for a few more days, Jim Starbird.
I thought it might be interesting for those of you here to know the story behind why it is we're associating this oak with Bob and its symbolism for the both saving as well as the resurrection of the park. I don't know if there's anybody else here who knows the story or who was there. Dave, were you in the EOC? You were probably in the EOC about that time. But at the height of the station fire, when literally it was coming over these ridges and heading down toward Deukmejian Park, our fire chief and battalion chief Godfrey came into the emergency operations center where Bob and I were both located. And they said, you know, they're going to be lighting these backfires, and we need to establish a line to do that because it's moving down toward Deukmejian Park and all the improvements. And they rolled out their topo maps and began to show us where they thought the line of defense should be set. And Bob was there, and he said, well, wait a minute, where's the oak tree? And we all went, well, there's lots of oak trees, Bob. We're probably going to lose them. And Bob said, no, I mean the historic oak. I think it's on the other side of the line. And the fire department was rather hesitant because they knew the danger, of course, of establishing a line further up in the hills. And Bob said, there aren't very many things we have to save up on the hillside, but we do have to save that oak. And so the fire department reconnoitered a bit, pushed the line back, and Bob continued to follow their progress and follow the status of this tree throughout the fire. Indeed, because of that, this oak remains today. So we've continued to tease him about that, but in reality, Bob, with his knowledge of the area, knew that the historic oak was on the other side of the line, and it didn't take a great deal of convincing, but it took a lot of effort on the part of the fire department to make sure that they have the resources necessary here when they lit the backfires, when the fires came over the ridge, to make sure that this tree remains. Bob, well deserved. I'm proud to serve with you.
I was kind of not totally prepared. I've been kind of downplaying this moment because it is. I've been downplaying it because it's so significant to me. actually this oak tree, and I do have a relationship, not as old as it is, but about 25 years, maybe 30 years. My daughter was one of the horseback riders up here when it was Inter Valley Ranch, and there used to be a riding group up here called Blue Shadows. And at the tender age of about 10 years old, she started riding up here. And it's actually before the city owned the property. And this oak tree was significant then, and it was a stopping point along the way. It's a coastal live oak, Quercus agrifolia. It's really a very special tree, and it in itself has a lot of significance to the canyon. And I was. As the city council now, city councils in the past have made a decision, this land is too valuable to the community to let it just haphazardly be developed or things happening. And in the 70s, we started buying the Verdugo Mountains and property in the San Rafael Mountains and Inter Valley Ranch up here. Many of you know that this canyon was scheduled to be converted into an underground culvert and homes built in here with a winery kind of a theme to it because of the history to it. And the decision was made, just simply can't let that happen. And I was very fortunate to be the park superintendent at the time and the only one with a four-wheel drive vehicle to go up and down the canyon and reconnoiter it and bring legislators up here and assemble money so that eventually we were able to acquire this property as one of the real cornerstones in the whole wilderness forest that Glendale is surrounded with and very fortunate to have. As Jim said, it didn't take any convincing that this tree was important to be able to save with those that are there. And I just have to, the real credit goes to the fire department, who actually literally, in face with the danger of fire over there and fire over there, came up here and they cut a large swath around the tree, and they took ownership of the tree themselves. In fact, they printed T-shirts up afterwards that have the symbol of the tree on it. It saved the tree. We've come up here and taken numerous photos. The firefighters wanted to be associated with it. I was even up here with a captain who was particularly involved, and even days later he was still coming up here with a shovel and going around it and turning over the ashes and the embers to make sure that nothing flared back up at some time later. And despite all the jokes from Mr. Starbird about turning this into firewood afterwards, the tree has been the tree is still here for generations and generations to come. And if it takes every Thursday to come in and water it, I'm happy to.
All right.
Thank you. I am beyond touched and grateful that you're all here, and George and the Parks and Recreation Commission and everybody involved. I have heartfelt thank you. Thanks for even thinking of something like this. It couldn't be anything more significant. Thank you very
much. I'll read it to you. It says, the McFall Oak. It says, in recognition of the leadership of Assistant City Manager Bob McFall to preserve this heritage oak during the 2009 station fire, the Community Services and Parks Department has designated this stately tree as the McFall Oak.
Yeah.